The second panel discussion of the day, Naval Forces and Shipbuilding Industry, how to strike a balance between military demands and social prosperity. The discussion will be moderated by Małgorzata Darowska, fellow with the Casimir Pulaski Foundation. Before I call her to the stage, I would like to remind those of you that are here in person that if you'd like to ask a question, matter of fact, we invite you to ask a question. There is a microphone to the side of the stage. And of course, to everyone who's either here in person or watching online and wants to participate in the conversation, use the hashtag at WSF 2022. And now it's time to give Małgorzata a warm welcome to the stage.
Good morning. My name is Małgorzata Darowska, and I will chair this panel about the Navy industry. I would like to welcome my venerable guests, Mr. Admiral Boudewijn, Mr. Cezary Cierzan, Director of Miecznik Program, Polish Armament Group, Vice Admiral Krzysztof Jaworski, Commander of Maritime Component Command Poland, and Mr. John Howie, President of the Society of Maritime Industries, UK. Well, I think that the title of the panel is the Naval Forces and Shipbuilding Industry, how to strike the balance between military demands and social prosperity. I think, of course, the Navy is just an example of industrial policy, but I think this seemingly simple question, how to strike a balance between military demands and social prosperity, will lead us to very many issues about the industrial policy, which are in normal times are quite difficult to answer, quite easy to answer, but in times we have now maybe much more challenging. So the first question goes to Mr. Boudewijn. Could you tell us from your experience, from your operational experience, naval operations, how do you see the future of Navy? What are the technologies that how the Navy can change given the technological development nowadays?
Thank you. Thanks for the question as well. I'll try to be brief. And I'll divide the question in two. First, what are the operational needs in 10 years' time? Which is probably a tough question. It used to be easier than nowadays. If you would have asked me 1 year ago, where would we be today, I would have probably largely be wrong, unfortunately. 10 years ahead. So I don't have a crystal ball, but we do see developments going on. And it's almost regardless the domain. So a few of the strains there probably is that you have to be more ready with your Navy. And you have to be more able to sustain operations with your navies. And you also have to be better than you were before. So on the first topic, more ready could be translated into just more platforms, so that you always have ready to act platforms. You don't have a choice anymore to pick out the war you would fight for. It's wars of necessity, so you have to be in a higher readiness all the time. The sustainment part of it is that your balance needs to be more directed towards long-lasting operations. We are currently building extra support ships to be ready to sustain operations with frigates and other ships. With regards to the quality of the work you do with the Navy, I think developments there are, of course, the multi-domain aspect. You need to be more looking over your own fences into other domains. You need to be ready to digest enormous amounts of information and be ready to act based on that. So robust and domain overstretching networks are key. You need to plug and play almost in the joint air and missile defense arena, as if you talk air defense with ships, you need to be, stay able to project power ashore, and probably in larger amounts than assault range dimensions, but short and fast projection of power ashore is absolutely key for Navy work. And all these developments will require a lot of innovation, and that's the second part. The triple helix concept is something we really admire and would like to continue. So on one hand you have innovation, research and applied science institutes, which we have a long-lasting relation with, completely transparent, with focus from the user perspective, the operational needs in the future. And this will develop to producible technologies. And for us, very important for the maritime domain is new radar technologies, so that your detection ranges grow significantly. Integration of sensors and shooters in network environments, and able to be able to strike deeper, so deep strike capabilities. In the underwater domain, developments towards large range sonars, active, passive, low frequency. And in the surface domain, detection is always the key challenge there. On the other side of this triple helix triangle, we have the industries, represented here as well, of course. Industrial politics is of course important also for my country. But in the end, the requirements will be most important. We are in the pre-procurement process of new submarines, for example. You can't do it on your own anymore, so it's international coalitions of industries. The third part, of course, and probably chairing this helix, is the user, the navies of this world. So this concept really pays off and works. There's a lot of things going on apart from these submarines. We are replacing frigates. We are looking for partners to do this with navies. We are building MCM ships together with Belgium. Probably France is jumping in there as well. Unmanned is a big thing there. So this will be motherships with remote controlled and almost autonomous drones systems. So there's a lot going on. Finally, focus points for us being not just too big an ally in NATO, for example, is we are looking for international cooperation, far more than we did before. It's not just the neighboring countries, but we are looking for international cooperation because, and that's my second point, and it's a sensitive issue, probably you will need to specify also with navies. And specialization is something that comes back from the days of budget cuts, but now it's to become better in certain aspects in the maritime domain. So you could, from cooperation to integration to specialization, reliant, accountable partnership.
Thank you very much for this 360-degree outlook for industrial cooperation and challenges. And the second question goes to Mr. Admiral Krzysztof Jaworski. Mr. Boots were speaking about challenges, about the future. So in the concrete program, how to react during implementation, given your experiences in the past, from the past, how to implement innovations during the implementation of previously planned program, how to react? Could you share your experiences and comment more about the industrial policy as well?
Yes, it's an excellent question anyway, but starting from looking at security environment now at the Baltic Sea, I'm not talking about details, it's not my domain, I'm operational commander, so let's say about some capabilities, abilities. And looking at this current situation at Baltic Sea, for sure we need some bigger, new, equipped with state-of-the-art technology equipment. And looking for instance for our previous program Gavron, which now is Ślązak Corvette, So it's small combatant ship, as we know. And nowadays we are building, no, not we, but our industry, my colleague will say about this, building frigate. And what is frigate? It's a bigger ship with more capable. Looking at current threat, and we know that we need, for instance, good anti-air warfare. I mean, to protect our ships, to protect our forces, and react against A2AD bubble, which is on the Baltic Sea. And for the other capabilities, it's important to have anti-submarine warfare, especially now. Like a week ago, we know what was happening at Baltic Sea, and we need some capabilities to look underwater, to react in advance sometimes, and to be sure that in that case, our pipes, our lines of providing energy to our countries it's important. So I would say innovation, yes, new equipment, yes, and we are looking forward for that.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Howie, I would like to, because you represent, among others, UK naval industry. Could you tell us, because Great Britain has excellent experience history in shipbuilding and cooperation between the state and the industry. Could you tell us what are the best practices that enable innovations, enable implementation of new technologies nowadays in the future? Looking also from the perspective of the bigger strategy of the UK government and regarding the shipbuilding industry and the industrial policy in general.
Thank you, and thanks for the invitation. I guess that the first thing is, a few years ago, the UK recognised that in order to get the best warfighting capabilities for the Royal Navy, they needed to work collaboratively with industry. And that meant making sure that industry had a stable flow of work into the shipyards, which would allow investment to take place and which would allow innovation to flourish. They've done that through two recent programmes, so the Type 26 anti-submarine warfare frigate programme and the Type 31 frigate programme, which I work for Babcock, and that's a programme we're delivering. And they're both quite different approaches to platform procurement. If I take Type 26, it's a high-end anti-submarine warfare frigate being built over a long duration. And the challenge that brings is that we know that the minute a naval programme is announced, technology is shifting at such a fast pace that by the time the ships enter service, some of the technology is already partially obsolete. And so you have to think about how you procure the ship, the design, the build of the platform, but separately the points where you crystallise the requirement for key weapons and sensors, knowing that technology is moving at an ever increasing pace, and a one-size-fits-all approach to procurement just doesn't work. Type 31 is quite different. What the UK government decided to do was deliberately buy a frigate that would be exportable, and we're already working in partnership with PGZ and with the Polish Navy on the Miecznik programme. Type 31 and Arrowhead 140, which is the export derivative, are deliberately designed to be ships that can be built and enter into service quickly, so that you capture technology at a point in time, and the platform has the size and the flexibility for technology to be inserted progressively through its life. On the basis that the ship will last 40, 50 years, the technology cycle is now maybe 5, 10 years at most. The way the Type 31 programme worked, the ships were built, the government set a specific budget. So they said, we don't want to spend any more than £250 million per ship, and that challenge was placed with industry. We bought in a design which is actually the basis of the Ivar Huitfeldt class in Denmark. A near 6,000 tonne ship. The requirement was for a 4,000 tonne ship, so we've built in lots of space, and in Poland to get that same benefit of having a large flexible platform. but from contract award to first ship in the water is only 3.5 years, which is remarkably fast for a complex warship. And so you don't have that same issue about trying to deal with system obsolescence, because the flash to bang time of getting the ship into service is really quick. What that programme is allowed to do, and the fact that there was an order placed for 5 platforms with the potential for export, it allowed us to invest significantly in shipbuilding capability and creating a state-of-the-art capability that is part of the transfer of technology package that will come to Poland in partnership with PGZ and Remontour. And it creates, if you like, a sort of a NATO standard frigate capability, not just in the platform, but in the way it's built and exported. So two quite different approaches. And the Type 31 built on the experience we had from building the new Royal Navy aircraft carriers, which are highly modular and were aimed at allocating work around the industry to provide social value, prosperity, and distributing work in a way that created genuine political benefit for stakeholders.
As a benefit for the stakeholders, as the key points of the UK policy. So you mentioned about the building capabilities, building in the Navy, in the shipbuilding industry. I will, the last question, this turn goes to Mr. Cezary, heading the Miecznik program. And the question is, zadam po polsku pytanie, jak pan widzi perspektywę, planując teraz szczegółową pracę dalej w programie, jak pan ocenia potencjał polskiego przemysłu, zarówno z grupy PGZ, jak i spoza grupy PGZ w tym programie? Jakie korzyści z tego programu może odnieść gospodarka i jakie inwestycje być może są potrzebne, żeby ten program z jednej strony został zrealizowany, ale żeby też korzyści dla polskiego podatnika się zadziały?
Dziękuję za to pytanie. For those who do not speak Polish, forgive me, but I decided to not touch you with my accent, so it will be easier for me and better for you. Więc po polsku, tak. Jeśli chodzi o przemysł, to możemy przyznać, że jesteśmy jednym z beneficjentów też modernizacji marynarki wojennej. Jako przemysł, tak jak sugeruje pani w pytaniu, oczywiście pozyskamy bardzo dużo nowych zdolności, technologii produkcyjnych, ale też będziemy w stanie dzięki takim programom jak Miecznik przeskalować swoje możliwości i również może to zabrzmi dosyć ambitnie, ale również zawalczyć o rynki eksportowe. Każda przygoda, tak to nazwijmy kolokwialnie, z tego typu zamówieniami w innych krajach, patrząc na inne firmy, jak rozwijały swoją działalność, zaczynała się od produkcji dla własnego kraju, dla własnej marynarki, a dopiero następnie te firmy, bazując na tym know-how, które pozyskało w ramach narodowego programu, walczyło o zamówienia na rynkach trzecich. Więc bezwzględnie przemysł pozyska nowe technologie, będzie w stanie dzięki tej skali programowi długoletniemu, będzie trwało około 10 lat łącznie, będziemy w stanie również zaimplementować szereg rozwiązań automatyzacji, robotyzacji procesów produkcyjnych, ale również ta warstwa, o której mówi się najmniej, ja często o niej mówię, ponieważ dzisiaj jestem operacyjnie odpowiedzialny za zarządzanie tym programem. Również te zdolności do zarządzania tak kompleksowymi programami, które są kompleksowe zarówno pod względem technologicznym, dla tych, którym umyka to uwadze często też w debacie publicznej. Chyba nie ma w Wojsku Polskim bardziej kompleksowego, technologicznie zaawansowanego systemu uzbrojenia niż okręt. Okręt posiada większość systemów walki powietrznej, które Wojsko Polskie implementuje w innych rodzajach sił zbrojnych. zarówno sensory, jak i efektory w tym zakresie, systemy artyleryjskie, systemy walki podwodnej, ale również systemy walki nawodnej, chociażby nadbrzeżne dywizjony rakietowe. To wszystko de facto mieści się na jednej platformie. W związku z powyższym kompleksowość z całego procesu zarządzania od strony technologicznej, ale od strony również przemysłowej, tej biznesowej, tej relacji biznesowych, o których zresztą tutaj przedmówca wspominał, które dzisiaj tego typu programy są zazwyczaj realizowane w układzie międzynarodowym, już nie tylko pomiędzy kilkoma firmami. Najlepszym przykładem jest program Miecznik. Mamy 3 polskie podmioty, PGZ, Stocznia Wojenna i Remontowa Shipbuilding. A z drugiej strony mamy 3 kluczowych partnerów zagranicznych, którzy dostarczają różnego rodzaju systemy, a my to w kraju wszystko integrujemy od strony biznesowej i od strony technologicznej. Więc tutaj bezwzględnie ten proces budowania polskich narodowych zdolności do udziału w modernizacji wojska, w tym wypadku szczególnie marynarki wojennej, na pewno będzie jest nie do przecenienia. Tak? Będzie to na pewno generacyjny skok, tak zwane Industry 4.0. Także tutaj w zasadzie tyle, co chciałem powiedzieć w tym temacie.
Dziękuję bardzo. Thank you very much. And so, after I think it's Miecznik program is a major project. It's one big flagship project which entails many details and will last for many years. I have a question to Mr. Admiral Boots. When the cooperation is in the process, we have, so what would you recommend to do to absorb all potential operational requirements, needs in the program which is being implemented? What should be done to benefit from this?
That's a very good question, and it ties in with, I think, the remark that was just made that building warships is complex, because in every ship you design is already too small when you start to build it, because technologies and systems develop so fast. So the modular approach is very important. We get a renewed focus on one of the vulnerabilities, for example, on the seabed with the critical infrastructure there, as we learned. So you need to be able to change the concept of the ship, ideally. And that's based on what your question, what is the latest operational lessons identified, which you want to incorporate side by side with new technologies and inventions in your existing ships, which is always a challenge. So I think a continuing cycle of talks with innovation, research and applied science in institutions, the end user being us, the sailors, tied in with industry, whether they can translate ideas to technologies that they can really build and fit in the ships is vital. So the high frequency talks where you get together in your Helix system to share the experiences translated to new operational demands is key. But it remains a challenge because it's not easily done to change elements, components in your existing ships. But we've seen alike, and I think John explained that as well, the modular approach is key there.
So the operational change during the program, this is the challenge, how to organize, how to keep the discipline, the budget, in the time. So may I ask you, Mr. Howie, the change management, it's something that is very challenging in Poland because we have operational needs and we have innovations, we have social demands. How to react? I'm asking all of you probably, how to react properly during the process, how to implement the change to prove the customer and to prove the society that this change is required, is justified, and it doesn't stop the program or doesn't change, and nobody can be blamed for previous assessment in the program. How you would do this?
So I probably go back to where I started with the two different contract models. I think that there's two ways you can run naval shipbuilding programs. You either decide to settle a requirement on day one and not allow it to be changed, and that gives industry the best chance of delivering on time and within budget. And Type 31 is what we call a no-change contract, so the customer has actually removed their right to make changes to the specification so that it can be built quickly and efficiently, because they've learned that introducing technical change during the process causes delay and drives cost. The downside with that is that, of course, you get that obsolescence risk, and so the alternative is that you build in technologies as they emerge, but recognise that there is a cost that goes with that, and there's a programme delay piece that comes with it. The model that I personally favour, the Admiral talked a lot about modularity, building platforms in a modular way that makes technology insertion easier, so open architecture systems, and the combat system that will be in the new Polish frigates is genuinely open architecture, and so it's much more plug and play, and that's been the thing that's tended to drive cost in the past. And we've got examples. We are currently life extending the Type 23 frigates, which are the backbone of the Royal Navy. We're fitting new surface-to-air missile system, new propulsion system, new radar. It's a complex task. On the plus side, you talked about the social benefits. Those long-term programs with periodic technology insertion do create stable, long-term, highly skilled jobs. And shipyards tend to be in areas where there's sort of lower social mobility, and so it creates long-term job security, and of course, defence companies are spending the taxpayers' money, and so there has to be that return to society. So yeah, I think modularity for me is at the heart of it, and having systems that have been designed to make it inherently easier for customers to change requirements when the operational need changes, which it inevitably will.
Innovation. So all the time we are tackling the innovation issue. So and the change, which I assume that there are no mistakes at the very beginning, but all the challenges are during the process are the result of the transition in the shift in technologies we are facing nowadays. So I would like the social benefit issue, because we are talking about the military demands and the industry, but the shipbuilding industry. But where else? Because the first question to Mr. Admiral Boots was about the future technology. But where to look for technology in the military industry, defense industry, or elsewhere? What do you think? How to look for and how to assess? Because normally in the past, military technology were a little bit, let's say, closed, and the military technology sent technologies to the civil. Nowadays, it's quite different. The civil technologies, there are no that much difference between civil and military technology. So. How to be open for example, startups or for academy, and where to look, where are how to engage the maybe not startup, but young companies and academia to the program. And maybe okay, Mr. Boots.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. We're no longer designing military technologies or innovations behind closed doors. Very often we are leaning on civilian developments and ideas and creativeness to finalize that to a military solution. I strongly believe in the active support and participation in completely open, very young, dynamic innovation hubs. they're very close to universities or startup facilities. And we do have a couple of, even in a small country like ours, a couple of them where we actively participate, even with military, to think with smart people, startups, within lines of focal points to see where we can develop and innovate technologies towards something we can really use. And even if there's just 5%, that really turns out to be really a technologically producible aspect of a system, then you already win. So this open and transparent, creative co-creation, I would almost say, is something we strongly believe in.
So co-creation is something which is probably may sound new to startups, for example, right? So because how to co-create, how to cooperate with shipbuilding industry, with the Navy, how to do that. I asked this question because if we talk about the value for taxpayer, I just wanted to mention that the Polish government spends lots of money for R&D. So the programs like Miecznik are probably the chance for R&D spendings to accelerate to mature technologies. So perhaps Admiral Jaworski would like to comment on that as well.
Yes, but from my point of view as an end user, I would say that what is important for us, I mean, some kind of unification, that, for instance, you can use the same systems in different services, for instance. So as far as I know, on Miecznik, there will be some implementation of systems which already exist or will be equipped with other forces or other services. So even from my point of view as a commander, it's easier, more efficient to combat and control when I have the similar or same system in different effectors, I would say, both ships or some coastal units. It's easier for me. So unification, flexibility, and in that case, some kind of compatibility. It's important for me.
Mr. Howie?
Yeah, I was just thinking about a couple of interesting examples. We have just now working with small companies who specialise in deployable autonomous systems. And I've looked at some of the really fabulous unmanned airborne systems that you can buy from large companies that cost tens of millions of dollars and can stay aloft for 12, 13 hours. We're working with a company just now who've got a system that we've now sold to customers on their behalf that can stay aloft for 10 days and costs under $2 million. It's effectively disposable. And that company employs 20, 30 people. They're a US company. And one of the things that I think we've found is the small companies that provide the lifeblood of any country's economy are often wary of working with large defence primes because they see them as people who'll ultimately absorb their technology and sort of steal their intellectual property. We've got a very deliberate policy of not doing that. 50% of the money we spend in our supply chain is with small and medium-sized companies, and they're great places to incubate innovation. And it means that if you work with enough small companies, not all technology innovation succeeds, but if you've got a broad enough supply base, you can back more winners than losers. And I think these days, as the Admiral said, the days of developing technology for defence and flowing it into the commercial market, they haven't gone, but it's predominantly the other way. So commercial sector technology coming in, and we are seeing that in autonomous systems. We're seeing it in the way that data is managed and exploited. And I think those small startup companies are going to be so important to the way the defence sector evolves.
Thank you. And Mr. Cezary, could you comment on this as well? We started with military demands, and now we are talking about startups. I believe we will move back to serious issues, but could you comment on this innovation side as well?
Oczywiście, że tak. Powiem żartobliwie, że niektórzy ciągle PGZ nazywają startupem. Nie jesteśmy jako organizacja, jako PGZ, nie powstaliśmy całkiem tak dawno. Jeszcze chyba dekada nie minęła, albo już zaraz mija dopiero. Oczywiście, że technologie, innowacje przy każdym takim programie, bazując na wymogach zamawiającego, się pojawiają. Oczywiście też prowadzimy w Polsce, ja ją obserwuję, nie wypada mi w niej uczestniczyć, ale prowadzimy taką debatę, ile faktycznie tych polskich innowacji pojawi się na Mieczniku i dlaczego tak mało. Ja jestem zupełnie innego zdania. Jeśli chodzi o okręty, też to ciągle podkreślamy. Okręty się buduje, nie produkuje, więc budowa polega na integrowaniu komponentów. I wydaje mi się, że dzisiaj najistotniejszą rzeczą jest właśnie zdolność do integrowania różnego rodzaju podsystemów walki. Tak, żebyśmy byli w stanie korzystać właśnie z najlepszych, najnowocześniejszych technologii. I wbrew pozorom, mam nadzieję, że nikogo nie urażę, ale takie słowo próbowano wprowadzić do języka technicznego w latach 80., czyli międzymordzie. Czyli to całe międzymordzie, czyli wszystkie interfejsy, które łączą poszczególne podsystemy, są dzisiaj czasami bardziej zaawansowane. Cała inżynieria tego systemu systemów jest jedną wielką innowacją, bo de facto każdy okręt ma różną konfigurację systemów walki. Połączenie tego wszystkiego odpowiednimi interfejsami i nałożenie na to odpowiedniego systemu wspomagania, zarządzania walką jest właśnie tą kluczową z naszej perspektywy, tych, którzy budują okręty, nie produkują komponenty, jest kluczowa. Także my jako polski przemysł, całe konsorcjum, właśnie jakby głównym celem tej naszej działalności jest właśnie zaangażowanie polskich spółek, nie tylko z grupy, również naszych innych strategicznych partnerów, ale też właśnie nowych. Tu wspomnieliśmy o startupach. Może nie są to już startupy, ale też kooperujemy już na tym etapie właśnie inżynierii systemów, dostarczania w tym zakresie właśnie integracyjnym dokumentacji projektowej. Współpracujemy z szeregiem małych podmiotów, małych firm, które okazuje się, że są bardzo efektywne i mają duży know-how. Brały wcześniej udział w wielu innych mniejszych projektach. Dzisiaj wrzuciliśmy niektóre z firm na głębszą wodę i poprosiliśmy o dostarczenie pewnych elementów integracji systemów, dzisiaj dokumentacji. Jeśli to wyjdzie, to pewnie zaufamy i powierzymy jakby z instalację tych interfejsów. Więc staram się mówić o tych mniej oczywistych rzeczach. Ciągle widzimy te główne innowacje w głównych systemach walki. Chociaż jedna innowacja, jeśli chodzi o systemy walki, taka bardzo fizyczna, naoczna, jest na okręcie, też polski OSU-35, armata kalibru 35 mm dostarczana przez polski przemysł, ale w tym, przepraszam, wiem, że to słowo brzmi brutalnie, ale w tym całym międzymordziu jest cała masa innowacji właśnie polskich spółek, gdzie będziemy my bezpośrednio w to zaangażowani.
Thank you very much. So I think the time for questions from the room.
Hello, Jacek Kaczewski. I'd like to ask a question. Although the forum is mostly dedicated to the military conflict, I'd like to ask how the Navy demands and the industry design have been influenced by new roles that have been taken upon by navies, like anti-piracy in the Horn of Africa, or maritime rescue of refugees, or new environments like the melting Arctic.
To whom is the question?
Well, both to the
answer?
representatives of the Navy and the industry, of course.
Mr. Howie?
Thank you. Really good question. And just if I use as an example the platform that Poland is buying, the Arrowhead 140 platform, if you look at the design of that ship in comparison to frigates that would have been designed 10, 15 years ago, what you'll see is a massive focus on modular boat bays on the side, which has taken into account the whole move towards anti-piracy, what we would call sort of the constabulary roles of helping the civil authorities, disaster relief, and those factors weren't taken into account in ship design 20 years ago. But obviously, what navies are doing now is, I think, is a much broader role, and we've seen it when there's been hurricanes in the Caribbean. We've seen it in the Far East with tsunamis, etc. And so I think navies have had to adapt, and ship design has adapted with it. So flight decks have got bigger to operate bigger, heavier helicopters. There's more space available on board for accommodation, for hospital care, and so I think it has influenced ship design and will continue to do so.
Mr. Booth, would you like to comment on this?
Yeah, I'm thinking about this question. I don't know if I got it right, actually. Is your question, do we learn from operations from the recent past?
Well, you have new roles now, I mean, even the Dutch Navy has roles in your now part of your country, that is St. Martin's, and there are even on the Discovery Channel, which is connected with this forum, there is a documentary regarding patrolling. So have your requirements changed because now new roles for you have come up, and roles that you did not have 20 years ago?
I got it. Thanks. Yes, but it doesn't go that fast. We know that the tasks and responsibilities of navies are quite broad. And the new roles, as you probably would call them new roles, sometimes it's humanitarian relief, sometimes it's counter drugs, sometimes it's search and rescue. It's more or less work you can do with almost any kind of ship. And the rabbit hole we probably, I'm very honest now, partly stepped in was to use times where there was a budgetary pressure to build ships specifically for those roles, more efficient, more lean, patrol ships, but they are not warships. So we are very efficient and effective in those lower spectrum responsibilities, for us the Caribbean, but also the North Sea, but also you could counter pirates with those kind of ships, but they're not ready and equipped for the high intensity war. So you would say, is it wise to do your shopping with a Ferrari? The answer was no. The answer is yes. You need to have first-class warships to be able to be the best in that domain. And with that, you do the shopping, like, and I don't want to criticize that too much, like counter-drugs and counter-piracy, search and rescue, fishery patrol, all those other tasks that are equally important, but they are next to your main task, win the war.
Thank you.
Let me add something, because actually I think that the main mission of the Navy hasn't changed for decades, I would say. So what is the mission? The main, I would say, is for every country is just to protect national interest. And of course there are some other threats that are just appearing regarding some specific situation, but I think that like you, Admiral, said, that more efficient ship should deal with these threats with any problems, and I think that industry can provide these capabilities for our combatants, our ships.
Mogę dodać, że dzisiaj mówimy o fregatach, tak, o dużym potencjale do prowadzenia konwencjonalnych działań, tak, bojowych, ale taka fregata posiada wystarczający zapas na zaokrętowanie dodatkowych elementów, chociażby wojsk specjalnych, posiada przestrzeń do tak zwanych modułów misji skonteneryzowanych, gdzie można łącznie ze szpitalami jakby instalować skonteneryzowane systemy misji do najróżniejszych zadań, więc to, co też się przewijało w tej dyskusji, no, jak ta dyskusja też w Polsce trwała od paru lat. Korweta, a może jeszcze coś mniejszego, a może coś większego. No ostatecznie okazało się, że zawsze jak podchodziliśmy do czegoś za małego, jeśli chodzi o klasę okrętu, to potem nie wszystko się mieściło. Dzisiejsza fregata zapewnia zapas wyporności, przestrzeni i mocy energetycznej taki, który pozwala na implementowanie właśnie dodatkowych modułów misji poniżej progu wojny, ale również przyszłe modernizacje, jeśli technologie się zmienią lub ktoś uzna, że chce jeszcze bardziej ją dozbroić.
Okay, thank you. Next question at the end of the room, please.
Marek Świerczyński, Polityka Insight. Do pana admirała Jaworskiego może pytanie, ale usłyszę chętnie komentarze pozostałych panów. Można powiedzieć, że ubiegły tydzień przy całym swoim dramatyzmie pomógł panu i rodzajowi wojsk przez pana reprezentowanego. No bo zwrócił jednak uwagę i ostatecznie przekreślił jakiekolwiek wątpliwości dotyczące strategicznego znaczenia Bałtyku dla polskich interesów, nie tylko obronnych, ale wszystkich innych. No i teraz w związku z tym mam pytanie, jak pan to wykorzysta? I jeżeli mógłby pan przedstawić taką listę marzeń, co by się mogło zdarzyć, gdyby to wykorzystać maksymalnie. Dziękuję.
Maybe I will answer this question in Polish, okay? Because question was in Polish. Otóż uważam, że dobrze pan redaktor mówi, że pomaga. No, ja myślę, że to, co robimy w tej chwili, to, co robi PGZ, to jest to, czego potrzebujemy. Ten program modernizacji powinien zabezpieczyć nasze interesy. I tak jak tutaj mój kolega, znamy się jeszcze wcześniej, powiedział, fregata zapewni nam te zdolności, które potrzebne są do zabezpieczenia naszych interesów i nawet w kontekście tego ostatniego działania ostatnich wydarzeń na Bałtyku, myślę, że to jest to, czego potrzebujemy. Tak krótko. Dziękuję.
Adam Biczyk, I would like to ask, in terms of defensive fleet operating at the sea, like Baltic Sea, are submarines in general, are they a good idea and a cost-effective idea, or should the main focus go on creating a radar network and creating missile systems like Neptune system seen on Ukraine that has sunk Moskva?
Maybe I will answer this question because I'm on the Baltic Sea. So you have to know that Navy should be well balanced because actually we need all different kinds of equipment. Baltic is not maybe big sea, but it's really, believe me, that it's enough room for submarines, for frigates, for also coastal defense missiles, which are already was bought by our country, but also for other Baltic states. So when you have to consider the protection of Baltic, of coast, of national interests, like I mentioned before, it's complex and it should be a holistic approach for that. So we need all, air assets, navy, or maritime, sorry, underwater and also coastal. So well-balanced navy is the most need, what we want to have.
Admiral Boots?
Even countries that don't live in the Baltic Sea, I completely agree. And I think recent developments have shown us the vulnerability in the seabed environment. And every sea that is suitable for types of submarine operations, you can't say it's not worth it, because it's not just the investment it will take and the capacity it will require, but it's also the threat that goes out from that. And I think the Baltic Sea is ultimately a sea where everything comes together in a relatively confined area with great and opposing interests, unfortunately.
Mr. Howie, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I was just obviously not military, but what I would say is I'm not sure actually we have an option I mean, what I think NATO has seen over the past 2 years is a massive increase in the number of incursions by Russian submarines into NATO countries' territorial waters. And I think every navy's been wrestling with that challenge. And I think submarines are the obvious way to counter that threat. And as the Admiral said, the impact on critical national infrastructure, be it data cables, be it gas pipelines, is becoming an ever-present threat.
If I may, your strategies mention very clearly that Navy should also take some tasks regarding the civil infrastructure. So I think this is also the option, not the opportunity, but the option and the clear message to the situation in the Baltic Sea is a clear message to the Polish government and the Polish military as well, that we should put a lot of attention to this issue, because now we have a conflict, but in the nearest future we'll probably not have a conflict, but threats will rest with us, I think so. But this is also the issue of keeping capabilities in the peacetime. And one more remark regarding the UK industry. The strategy for shipbuilding industry in the UK mentioned that all programs, governing the shipbuilding industry in the UK, the goal is also to connect and to integrate the UK itself, the different parts, Ireland, Wales, Scotland, and the UK. If I may, a question, we have some time for a question from the room as well, but the question to Mr. Cierzan. Jak pan widzi tutaj możliwość właśnie jakby penetrowania tych zdolności, rozwoju zdolności z samego Bałtyku, że tak powiem, ale na inne terytoria Polski i współpracę też międzynarodową?
To już chyba wybrzmiało, ale może jeszcze warto to rozszerzyć. Faktycznie to jest bardzo ciekawe zagadnienie, ale już dzisiaj Miecznik realizowany jest w międzynarodowym partnerstwie. Już sam Thales to są przynajmniej 3 kraje, Nederlandy, Francja, Wielka Brytania, to te 3 główne. Dodatkowo Babcock, który również operuje i współpracuje z innymi przemysłami, firmami zagranicznymi. Nasze partnerstwo z Babcockiem wybiega też daleko poza Miecznik. Oczywiście obowiązują mnie pewne tajemnice handlowe. Tutaj patrzę na dyrektor z Polski, z Babcocka, więc nie będę o nich głośno mówił, ale wydaje mi się, że prędzej czy później będziemy też informować o postępach naszej współpracy strategicznej poza Miecznikiem, która również poza granice Polski, więc to wszystko w tym międzynarodowym układzie się dzieje. Liczymy na to, że w kolejnych programach, może nie polskich, ale innych krajów wokół Bałtyku lub w pobliżu, może też Morze Północne, będziemy również dalej zacieśniać tę współpracę, bo to już dzisiaj wybrzmiało, tego typu kompleksowego sprzętu wojskowego nie da się dostarczyć jako jeden kraj.
Dziękuję. Czy są jeszcze jakieś pytania z sali? Proszę bardzo.
Thank you. My name is Jakub Knop. I'm from University of Warsaw. So I wanted to ask about the future of aircraft carriers and in light of Chinese development in terms of hypersonic missiles, and whether or not it's a right direction to, keep building ships that can cost up to $20 billion, where asymmetric capabilities can destroy them for in just small proportion of that cost. And whether or not the new US Navy approach, where they want to focus on quantity and not really on the size of the ships, is the right approach, and how could it impact their involvement in Europe? Thank you.
I can talk about the UK experience with aircraft carriers. Yeah. So the UK has just recently built the world's first 2 5th-generation aircraft carriers. Babcock assembled them at our site in Rosyth in Scotland. They're 65,000-ton ships. We built 2 of them for about £6 billion, so they're, in a cost per ton basis, they are the best in the world. But you're right, they're large targets, and the advent of hypersonic missiles, I think, gives every armed forces reason to be concerned, and it's why there's a huge focus on the development of counter-hypersonic capability. The UK is part of the AUKUS partnership with the US and Australia. Hypersonics and counter-hypersonics are a key part of that process. What I would say about the UK's experience is that we had about a decade where we had no aircraft carriers, and during that time we mounted military operations around Libya and other parts of the Middle East and further afield, where actually it became increasingly difficult to get access to other countries' airfields for refueling, for deployment, and we really missed having access to effectively a mobile airfield. And so if you ask people in the Royal Navy, the aircraft carriers are 4 acres of sovereign capability, so they're part of the UK that you can move around the world. And we deployed Queen Elizabeth into the Far East last year, and that was a clear message around NATO's plans to support countries from incursions from China and further afield. So I'm personally, I can see the military logic in them, but I do take your point that they do present a prize target for adversaries.
Admiral?
Thanks for that question. I think the broader question behind it is vulnerability of maritime platforms, of ships, regardless the size and the function or the vitality of it. This is an ongoing challenge, a cat and mouse game. Are you ready to defend your platforms against any new developing threats? Nowadays, it's probably in the underwater domain growing, but also hypersonics, small drones, what have you. And I would not exclude the cyber domain, the cyber resistance you need to have on a unit level, on a platform level. But it can't be the result. Let's not build them because they're vulnerable when the military requirement is there to oppose a threat. So that this game will always be there. And yes, you've seen over the last years, ships tend to get bigger, and that makes the risk of being more vulnerable and losing more when you are losing your platform is a fact. So we will need innovation. We will need good ideas to be better able to defend platforms against any other evolving threats.
Thank you very much. Last comment? That's, okay, thank you very much. So it's thank you for the discussion. It seems that we need a lot of many platforms, large platforms, open for innovation, and no doubt the prosperity of the society based on one project can be significant, and if we enlarge for more platforms, more initiatives and more programs, it will be much better. Thank you very much, Admiral Boots, Mr. Cezary, Admiral Jaworski, Mr. Howie. Thank you.